Good morning, happy Monday, and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne, and disembodied hands, Quindy, Justin, and John. Hello, yeah, the Anne clan, is that what we are now? But what about Quindy and Justin and John? Oh my. Good evening? Oh, all right. Good day, mate. We need painty big pokey tools first. I need to talk to Julie about that. That's all on me. Hello, everybody. It'd probably be easier to just make them on a magnetic plate, and do a mold that way. Although I guess you'd have to put the pin in. I don't know. This is all like things Ed would know that I don't know. So last night I had a dream that I, for some reason, like I had to go back and get a job from Reaper again, and they put me to work in the Pizza Dungeon cafeteria. Because dreams are weird. There we go. Sorry, was bad, and because we went down south this weekend, I did not reset my desk, so I had all my sculpting tools still out. There we go. Now we're good. Yeah, funny, right, Quindy? Or did you laugh at the Ed knows things? Ed knows lots of things, Dr. Bob. If they're useful things, is the question. Slinging dragon pies. Yep, it would look great on my resume. I thought it was funny. It's just weird what brains come up with. I think my brain was trying to make me really grateful for being able to be a freelancer. All right, let's get these blues out. We need the blues today. Blues. Let's see here. Oh, those are teals. They're hiding in my blue. They're blue teals. They're hiding in my thing. Oh, there we go. I knew I kept all these in the proper place. Akata. And then Irison. All right, so our blues today, at least for this part of the model, our blues are 2 Pathfinder blues and 2 core blues. Which, yeah. Oh, you were laughing at the fantastic dream? Yeah, good. But yeah, so yeah, that was, I don't know. My brain comes up with the weirdest crap. This is why I'm a writer. Alrighty, we are set. We're going to work on blue today. We're going to work on some layering. And we're going to kind of figure out what level of blue we want this to stay at. Like lighter, darker, not sure. I think I want a line around it before we start working on it, though. You know, that's always the dealio, right? Gotta line it so that we can keep an idea of how light or dark it actually is in mind. It's easier if you line it. I'm getting low on my bottled water. I might have to, hopefully I get through the stream without having to refill. Usually I have backups, but I don't see a backup on my actual desk, so we'll have to wing it. Hey there, Bob and Julie. Layering. Yeah, we're gonna do Ashen and Akata are very similar. That's kind of why they make a very good highlight and shade for each other. They are very similar, but you can see that you can definitely notice the difference when you get close. So Ashen on the left, Akata on the right. So I'm kind of thrilled about this because I actually this essentially makes a new quadrad at the very least. This makes it a good triad. So if you like the Templar and Ashen colors, but instead of going down to Brion, you'd rather go up, Akata is a natural highlight for these. And I love blue grays and gray blues, so that's why I just love Akata. I love the color. So, and then I grabbed Irison because I kind of really like the light warm blues. So I thought maybe this could be worked in. So we'll see. So yes, we're layering today. We kind of started layering a little bit. You can see it here. And of course, layering up these colors is going to change the general color on the wizard. So we may end up with a very light robe and have to make some other colors on the model darker. So we're going to see. Yeah, mornings. I know, right? Monday mornings especially. So I'm going to mix up some of my Templar blue, which is our base coat color, just because I want that to be there to correct anything, if I go too overboard or I need to do a little blend. But we will layer. Gray blues are actually, they're really rewarding color to layer. If you've ever painted Space Wolves, I painted Space Wolves at Games Workshop for half of an army. And I gotta say, gray blues layer really well in general because usually they start out with some white in them. So all of the problems you have with a bright blue, you don't have with a gray blue in general. They love to layer up. Like, they're really easy. It's a really easy color to layer. So I am not. Although, should I? I'll make a note. Arcane, huh? Netflix. Right now, John, we are watching the new season of the Great British Baking Show. Okay, I'll write it down. We'll look at it. David is persnickety about his fantasy shows. He didn't like Witcher, and Witcher was really violent because Witcher. But I would have watched more of Witcher. But it's not a show that I want to watch when I don't have David to hide behind, so we kind of had to stop watching. Also, he probably was annoyed that I thought the actor playing The Witcher was really hot, so. Okay. Uh-oh. Oh, it is. Crowley just wants more coffee. Happy sub-anniversary, happy sub-anniversary, happy sub-anniversary, happy double sub-anniversary. There we are. Double, yes. I could have said double sub-anniversary, but I think I'm just going to put the double in at the end. Yes, indeed. Alrighty, so let's grab some Akata. So I'm just going to essentially set up my colors here. And when you're layering, you want each color to be noticeably lighter as you go up in highlights, or noticeably darker if you're shading. He is super hot. Yes, no kidding, Kerniko. Perfect for that character and super hot. And he paints 40K, yeah. Yeah, right, perfect man. Well, at least he paints, at least. David is really the perfect man, because he paints other things, to, in addition to 40K. Getting close, Clavicus. Getting close. Arcane is animated. Oh, really pretty. Okay, cool. Cool. That's neat. Okay, yeah, I will check it out. I have written it down. No, yeah. Well, this is the problem with reboots on popular superheroes when somebody previously has nailed the popular superhero, like has really gotten it. Like, it's like, and then when you follow that act, it's like James Bond. If you're going to do James Bond, you have to be the Bond that nobody has seen yet, but that is still definably James Bond, right? Like Pierce Brosnan, he brought more of the wacky, like kind of like smirking at himself humor into the Bond. And that was definitely a part of Bond. So it worked, right? But then Dennis Craig like doubled down on the super gritty Bond, which is a more modern take. And that also rocked. So, it's like you have to do that. If you're going to, it's the same thing with Superman and Batman, I think, is you have to find an aspect of that character that hasn't really been hit yet. And you have to hit it. Like, I think it's really challenging to try to play like any of the iconic characters. Oh, wow. The new Highlander reboot. All right. That's on my radar now. Thanks, Kerniko. Hey, thanks for the Prime. Oh my God, New Encode. You're going to make me do 2. Happy sub-anniversary. Happy sub-anniversary. Happy sub-anniversary. Happy double sub-anniversary. There you go. Thank you. Thank you both. 24 months is huge. Huge milestone. Thank you. Yeah, all right. So we've got a pretty good triad here. Now you can see that Akata is actually, and this is where the bottle kind of like makes Ashen fade out a little bit, but you can really see the difference here between these two colors. Oh, for Reaper Live and Reaper Land. All right, well, that's the double one, so I hope you have a regular sub-anniversary as well. Those were pretty good, actually. Those were, like, my voice is a little rough this morning, but they were decent. They were respectable sub-anniversaries. All right. Yay. Hey guys, we got paintings this weekend. We actually found a pair of paintings by the same artist that will fit on our big wall. And they're really pretty. Yeah, right, Shadow Raven. It's not a Highlander reboot unless you get a Scottish actor to play a Spaniard. Hey, Sean Connery was perfect for that. Sean Connery, that was the age of Sean Connery. Sean Connery was in every freaking movie. Yes, you can. I have pictures, Julie. Hold on. So we have rather a lot of San Francisco art in our house, possibly because we both really like the city. Let me get back to past the sunset pictures, although you guys can also see the pretty sunset on the beach last night. It was really pretty in Carmel. Okay, so here's the picture of the two together, and they're reframing the one. They're reframing this one so that they'll match, but it's the same artist. So that's one, and I have better pictures too, and that's the nightscape. So we got these because it's the same artist, and it's not the same street. They're two different areas of San Francisco, but they're very similarly composed. And since one is morning and one is evening, they're really a nice foil for each other. So I really like this one with the tower in the background. And the light is really pretty on the buildings. So there's that one. And then the night one is really pretty too, with the indigo in the sky and a little bit of pink, and then the wet pavement with the light reflections and the fog kind of coming in like it does in San Francisco. So yeah, both of these are really beautiful. I fell in love with this one last time I was in the Carmel. It actually was still in the gallery, and I was like, why has that not sold? And they're like, well, it was kind of hanging up behind the door. I'm like, well, good. And then the evening one, Andy talked to you about Pokey tools. Yes. Hey, Julie knows. We've mentioned doing a dragon Pokey tool before for painting big. But yes, we have to have an official discussion. We'll have an official discussion at some point. But yeah, so yeah, the evening one, like in the gallery, the evening one did not, like, I was like, oh, okay, whatever. And once I moved outside though, and all the colors really showed up, I just love this warm foreground and the cold background. It's just really beautiful. So now it's like, now which one is my favorite? I don't know, but those will go right above our dining room table. So we're very happy. They're both 3 feet by 3 feet. They're big. But that's a really big wall. So that was the problem. We didn't have anything else large enough to really fill that wall. But I love the morning and evening juxtaposition on those. It's really cool. Did I somehow, misplace my giant mixing brush? Now I'm annoyed. I don't really want to trash that brush. Pardon me while I find a brush to trash. Oh, there it is. It accidentally went with my sculpting tools. Yeah, the wet pavement. David and I both really like painted effects like that. We like the wet and the light reflections. He likes light reflections and lighting in general. So we'll start out with a 4-to-1 on these. I'm definitely going to have to thin it more, though. But yeah, we saw a lot of beautiful art this weekend, so it was really fun. One of the galleries had a Banksy, and I didn't know what a Banksy was, except that until they explained it. But he's a graffiti artist in London, and essentially was very iconic in certain past periods, like for political graffiti and stuff. And so now he's famous enough and his stuff is worth enough, and he's anonymous. You'll never see it normally you never see it in a gallery. You'll only see it offered at auction, but they go for millions. They'll actually excavate entire parts of buildings to get the Banksy art off of it and then rebuild the part of the building. Yeah, we saw the one that the Sex Pistols, it was the one in the gallery was the actual plaster wall, that the one that the Sex Pistols performed in front of for was it Give Peace a Chance, or it was something like that. It was the helicopters. So it was kind of cool to see that. That is you don't even ask the price unless you've got multi-millions in your bank account. It was a little bit insane. It's your birthday. Happy Valen Day. We're going to call it Valen Day for Valendar. Yeah. What gauge wire is best for a pokey tool? It's spring steel, and it's serious like a straight pin. Like the pin at the top is there. You can see it's a T pin. So we use T pins. Yeah, hardened steel. Yeah, he still randomly puts work, and that's the cool thing about him, Kariniko. Like, I mean, I kind of feel like it's kind of craptastic to take it away from the areas it was already in. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the attitude is there on that. I actually wondered about that the other day. Do graffiti artists like it when other people like iterate like kind of over the top of their work, or do they do they want their work to stand? I mean, it probably varies by the artist, right? Thanks for the resub, Val. 16 months. You're getting there. Super. All right, where's my brush? I need a good layering brush. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. A tagger is different. I don't know much about graffiti art, so it's like, but it seems to me it's a very individual expression, just like any other art form. Let's get this in focus. Yeah, there was some cool art. The thing is, it was just, we were very happy to find these paintings because David and I have really different tastes along some lines. We have similar tastes in that, you know, that we both like, we both enjoy a well-done cityscape or a piece with really good lighting. So we have some areas that we both like in general, like nature paintings, if they're wild enough, like they can't be too perfect. David does not like perfect. But then there's definitely art that he loves that I just don't. He likes his cityscapes to be really like kind of like gritty and dirty kind of sometimes, and I'm just not in it. And I like a lot more wildlife scenes that are maybe a little bit more pastoral, and he doesn't. So yeah, it's hard for us to find a piece, much less two, that we actually love, both of us, to the point where we want to look at it for decades to come in our main room. So we were really happy because we remembered this artist from last time. Yeah. Yeah, which is pretty cool, Valendar, actually. Yeah, I kind of wondered, like, what he just likes the chaos, yeah. I wondered if he get, like, if any of the money goes to him or if it doesn't. Like, I kind of wondered about that. Because it's kind of, I hate to say this, but as an artist, it would be really annoying to me if people, like, you know, essentially stole my work off of streets and buildings and sold it for millions of dollars to benefit themselves. Oh, was it charity? Oh, okay. Yeah, that's what David was saying. I mean, David has been in London a lot, and he said there's some amazing street art in London and Scotland. He goes to Ireland for work, or used to go to Ireland for work regularly too, and there was some good stuff in Dublin. Oh, all right, so we're going to start our layering brushstroke. I'm going to get closer. I'm going to have to thin this, but we're going to start out thick so you can see what I'm talking about. Yeah, exactly. All right, so you want to do a little brush stroke. That's kind of, I mentioned this the other day. If you have a long surface, then you want to go across it. Whether it's horizontal, then you want to go vertical. If it's vertical, you want to go horizontal. That's because you want to confuse the eye. Layering never is a true blend. You can always look real close and see some of the signs of layering. But the more you can confuse the eye and confuse your brush strokes, the more it will look like a perfect blend. And really, the best layering, you won't be able to tell, you won't be able to see the marks unless you like got out just really strong magnification. So you can see my brush strokes here. You can see those little lines. And that's like just basic layering, and it means that your paint is too thick or that your colors are not close to each other. So if you want to use thicker paint, you can, but then you need to have the colors be closer together than this. If you mixed a 50-50 mix of these and did that first and then went up to this, you probably wouldn't see those brush strokes at all. So if your colors are very close together, you can get away with thicker paint and not perfect paint consistency. The more different your colors are between them, between the layers, the more you will need to thin to get it to blend appropriately. So I'm going to do another layer of this, and then I'm going to switch up to a thinner mix. I'm going to add another drop of water and take this to a 2-to-1 and show you the difference. So you can really see those brush strokes, especially when they're wet. When they dry, they darken a little bit, so they get a little bit more blendy. But we're going to drop another drop of water into this sucker. But yeah, we saw some really pretty art. Like, I'm always so conflicted. Like, on the one hand, like, gallery owners really they kind of enable it a little bit so that you can shop for a bunch of art from a bunch of different people and you can see it all in the same place, and it's cool that you can do that. And they also tend to put, they spend the money to put their stores in areas that get their artists visibility in areas where people are shopping for art. But at the same time, galleries take such a huge cut of the artist's paycheck. So I'm very conflicted about it all. I don't know that there's a better system, though, that gives the artists the visibility at the same time as the market location as well. I don't know. I guess it works or they wouldn't do it. I don't know. This is a place that I've never been since I've never gotten to the point where my 2D was good enough to be marketed to galleries, just because I haven't touched 2D in so long. All right, so we thinned it a bit and mixed it up. And now I'm going to bring it over this. And what this will do is actually it will blend in some of my previous brush strokes by filling in some of the holes. And you can see how much smoother this is. Like, you can kind of see that blend starting out. See that? That kind of fog look where you can really start to kind of see it fade in. So that's a 2-to-1. And that's, I think, almost a pretty good consistency. You need to go more when you don't have a lot of, when you have a lot more white in the piece or in the paint. So this doesn't have a ton of white in it. It does have white, but it's not like an off-white, right? Off-whites you're really thinning. This, maybe we could blend it a little bit more. Maybe we could drop a little bit more water in it, bring it closer to 1-to-1. Usually when I recommend a starting point for layering lighter colors, I tend to tell people start around 1-to-1. We'll see. I'm going to put this, keep going, because I can see some brush strokes. They aren't as apparent to you guys on canvas. Now, one thing you'll notice is I'm getting a lot of more striping down here and a lot less up here. Part of that is I've got too much paint on my brush down here. When I start, if you've got a lot of paint on your brush, it's going to leave more of a mark. You can see, though, see how we're getting more of a fade here. We can still see the line. We can still see the barrier here. Where our brush stroke started. So that's a sign that we still don't have proper paint consistency. If we had a really good layering paint consistency, we wouldn't see this line. We would have a blend. It would start as a blend. So what we can do to fix that is we can grab our base coat color, the Templar blue, and we can layer it in the opposite direction. And since Templar blue is a darker color, it really doesn't need to be thinned much more than it is. I'm going to try it and see if it works for us here. And then if I have to thin it a little more, I will. But the darker the color, the less you have to thin it to get a good blend. So we're going to come at it, I'm turning the wizard upside down. I'm going to come at it from the opposite direction. And our goal here is to interrupt this line that we created with our brush strokes by putting a little bit of the Templar blue in the same brush stroke, but in opposite direction. And kind of going over that edge to try to blend that edge in. And the reason that it would blend in is because, see, you can see the wet paint, because we're trying to essentially put a kind of a translucent level of Templar over the top of that line, and we're trying to blend it. It's working a little bit. I think I need a little bit more. Yeah, because I can still see that demarcation. And you can kind of see on the palette as well, like how thin the paint is. This is fairly thin, the way it's coming off this palette. It's still there. I definitely want it there because I need it to impact the color I'm putting over the top of. But let's do it again. And you can see how little paint I've got on my brush. Just it's not really making any puddles. It's making a little bit of a sheen. That's what you want. That's a bit better. You can see now. You can see how that's coming in. See? There. And that has made this edge a lot more uneven. We can't see that line anymore. So it has worked. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I think that's how it works. I was actually reading an article this morning along those lines saying how much, like how the entire gallery system worked. Because after buying art, I was very curious. I wondered how much the gallery owner got. It wasn't Sunday anymore. Yeah, but I think that's probably very much what happens, Kerniko, is that you set the price you want, and then the gallery owner has to price it up to cover things like rent. Especially because many galleries are in very expensive areas because, you know, they're trying to market to people who have the money to spend on artwork, especially originals. So it's not cheap rent. While I've got this, see, this side also has the artifacts. See these brush strokes? That's because we did the same thing last time. So while I've got this Templar blue, I'm going to actually mess this. Actually, the other thing we could do is just to glaze. So let's do that. Let's grab a brush full of our Templar blue and build a glaze. I'm going to drop a couple drops of water into it. So it really is just looks like watercolor, colored water. Kind of sit and watch it. You want to make sure that it leaves just a little film of its color over the surface of this. That's what ceramic palettes are really good at, glazing. You can see that it just leaves the faintest hint, and that's what you want. Because then you can build it up. So I'm going to use this to wipe out some of these brush marks, hopefully. It'll probably take a couple of glazes. Better to layer a couple over. Glazing, you want to go fast, and you want to cover the surface. In this case, I only did these 2 folds, so that's what I'm going to cover. And I'm going to start at the top and work down. And then I'm going to go kind of, oh, I missed a spot back there. I mean, in my base coat I did. Okay, I'm going to kind of look real quick. I've got a pool. See the pool down here? I'm going to wick that off just by kind of rinsing out my brush and getting it damp, and then squeeze out most of the water. And that'll let me kind of wick off any additional. And I'm going to wick the moisture off at edges if I can to avoid disrupting this. Join Brother Dave and John. Dark chocolate chip pumpkin bars. Oh, nice. Super crawly. Yeah, I made pumpkin spice cookies before we went on the trip. So I've made my inaugural fall cookie batch. They were pretty good, but it's just like using a lot of pumpkin. Like I feel like I should have used more like half and half butter and pumpkin. I used a lot of pumpkin, and that means they go very, very moist after the first day. I'm going to just block in some of my base coat back here that I totally missed, guys. Behind the arm here. I think it was one of the last things I did. So I very much missed a spot. However, since we thinned down our part, hopefully it'll stick. There. All right. So that has fuzzed out. It does 2 things though, right? So over here, we still have that pretty, like, it's the same color. It's the Akata blue. Whereas here, we've darkened down the Akata blue just a little bit. You see the difference? See the light of it there, and then see how it's darker here? That's what glazes are doing. They're going to do that. That's kind of the side effect that you don't like, because a glaze is just a really, 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 really thin wash. That you're just putting a layer of paint to tint the top of the area. So a glaze actually is diametrically opposed to a wash, right? Because a wash, you want the shadows, you want pooling. And you want it to add shadows, and the fact that it darkens down or changes the top layer of paint is actually the detriment of doing a wash. But with glazes, you're inverted. You don't want any pooling at all, and you want the discoloration, the darkening, the lightening, or the shifting of color over the whole surface. So they're two thin paint applications that actually are used for diametrically different ends. They're diametrically opposed. One of them is chaotic evil, one of them is, lawful good, or something like that. Maybe chaotic good and lawful evil. Yeah, well, I don't know. Washes are pretty chaotic. Oh, I'll have to think about that. The alignment of a wash as opposed to the alignment of a glaze. Collins has never met a button he didn't want to mash. So true. All right, so now we've lost those highlights a bit, but we know that we've got our Akata blue at the right consistency, or sorry, not Akata, our Ashen blue at the right consistency for layering. So we're like, all right, we've nailed this, so now we can come in and we can highlight these areas a little bit more. I was thinking of alternating light and dark for the interior, Pendrake. It still has to look like a, it still has to look good at the end and not like a hot mess. Doing a lot of different blues here might turn into a hot mess. Although I was thinking about showing you guys how to utilize, like, I always say you can use colors that are close together on the color wheel if you make them really different in another way. So I was thinking about playing with that with some of this cloth. So I'm bringing back my highlight here on the edge to bring it back up. No, I really haven't because Crowley, part of my joy in painting, part of the reason that I paint is to create things that make me just really happy on a gut fundamental level. So for me, I'm always trying to make choices that just make like my inner Anne just kind of light up and go, ooh, yeah, I love that. That looks great. So I don't really get like the urge to paint something to be a hot mess because it really would just annoy me. I would kind of feel like it was a waste of my time. Because I could have been creating something that was so much cooler that I actually liked. So I guess that as a painter, I'm a very regimented painter. Like, I really like getting in tight and controlled and really working on balancing the different parts of a piece and doing all kind of that. And see how smooth this is now, guys, after the glaze and then having the proper paint consistency. It's just a beautiful fade. Well, gibbering mouther is a different thing, right? I mean, even when you paint a gibbering mouther, you're still going to want to paint it effectively so that people can, like, see parts of it and get all the details and stuff, right? Like, even if I painted, like, a chaos demon, I would still work on, like, subtly influencing the color scheme to be effective. Even if it ended up looking chaotic, if you broke down what I did, it wouldn't be. Yeah, so, and it's just, that's why I don't do it. Like, you can make something a hot mess if you want to, but for me, especially if I'm going to give it to Reaper, or maybe even sell it on my Patreon, I want it to be the best thing that I can do. The thing that makes me happy. Like, a model that I look at, like, there's just this feeling of satisfaction I get when I look at certain models that I've painted, and I'm just like, yeah, I nailed that part, or something like that, or ooh, I really love this color, I love how it turned out, stuff like that. So my definition of a hot mess is more like something that's very discordant to me when I look at it, something that really isn't working. Like right now, Tiefling Warlock is a little bit of a hot mess because his colors aren't harmonizing yet. But I'm pretty confident that I can make them do so. So I just need to work on it. So I'm just continuing to build up layers of this just to get that beautiful fine. And there is still a little texture. Let's see if my camera can pick it up. See it? See the little tiny bit of texture? But look at how big it has to be on your screen before you see that. So that's what I'm talking about when I say get close enough to good layering. You'll probably be able to see a little bit of texture. Unless they've worked really hard on it, really hard with the glazing and layering, then you're probably good. But the thing is here, the other reason to use this horizontal stroke is if you notice this texture, like if you get close enough to see it, chances are you're actually going to interpret it maybe as cloth texture. If it's consistent around all of this type of cloth, and then you probably are going to, especially with the way that I'm working with this little rip in his, kind of little bit of nibbles in his front here, kind of like leaving those streaks, like almost like it's a run in the fabric or a snag. Like that helps me then create the, oh no, this was intentional. Yeah, they do have a defined, organized style guide. Well-defined style guide. I love it. I mean, it makes sense for Slaanesh, but... Well, and I guess corn, like if you didn't tell corn demons how to dress in the morning, like it probably would just be terrible. So yeah, I mean, gonna bring around this highlight here. I used to love Slaanesh, but these days I'm into Tzeentch because I like the colors. Nurgle was always my least liked Chaos God, but the new sculpts for Nurgle are amazing. So now I'm like, oh, I actually want to paint something ugly. Ugly and grotesque. There was one. I'm trying to remember, Pendrake. But the thing about the old D&D monster... and I actually liked a lot of their color schemes. When I was a kid reading it, I would be like, ooh, that's pretty, you know. But the thing about the old D&D stuff is usually they didn't get super specific. Where you get into trouble with color schemes is when you get super specific. If you just say, pink and gold with azure eyes, Chiron or Kirin, the colors of a sunrise, then it's great. In reality, depending on the pink and teal and gold you choose, you could mess up that color scheme. But if you're just describing it in terms of general colors, my brain is going to adjust it to look good. Whereas if you gave the precise colors, if it was an actual color art in the original monster manual, I'm certain there would be terrible colors because the cover art of those modules was awful. So right, but Corporea is using she's still using tricks. She's still using color composition. Even things that look chaotic are probably using still some basic color rules. If it doesn't look if things don't look off to you, then probably there's some actual color foo at play. Just because something has a lot of different colors doesn't usually make it bad. Usually it's more clashing colors. It's when you see clashing colors on a piece. If I used a bright teal next to this blue and it was the same, it wasn't terribly dark or terribly light, that would be terrible. It would be awful. Discordant as heck. Then it would be a hot mess. So a hot mess to me does not necessarily mean lots of colors or too many colors. In reality, you can go Technicolor Lich of Doom. I'm going to go back for a second and mix up some liner because I do want to line at this point. So we're going to just do a 4-to-1. We're using Death Knight Black because I misplaced my blue liner. Although actually, no, maybe I have an extra bottle. So yeah, if Death Knight, I'll do 1 drop of blue liner. So we'll do a 5-to-1, which is actually the lining weight I tend to like for 28 millimeter. Keeps it dark. There. And blue liner is actually a bit darker than Death Knight Black. Death Knight Black, it's a little less black in it. And Death Knight Black is also a little more translucent than blue liner is. Because of that, less black. So we're going to use this. So we are using blue to shade the blue. And now we will come back and get some darks because we have like almost no darks here. Like I did a little bit of lining here and there, but at this point I want to line around the blue. But yeah, it's like, I wouldn't go totally random if I did different shades of blue on this. I would more be trying to introduce high contrast and try to make it look almost like almost stained glass, I think. Not like actual stained glass, but the effect might be that kind of mosaic thing. Oops, I blurfed. Blurf, 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 blurf. There. I blurfed right under the beard though, so if I had made an accidental shadow there, at least it would have been in the right place. Right, exactly, Nemedzik. I'm going to go upside down to get a better. Remember, when you want to hit an area and it's awkward to reach, turn your model upside down, see if you can reach it from the other side in a better way. I'm going to shade the entire inside of this cloth, which pretty much will equate to lining when you see it from the front. See? That thin line there. I feel like that's a bubble of plastic underneath there, unless it's because it's not really a foot. I'm uncertain if it's supposed to be there or if it's supposed to have been molded and it didn't mold well. The sad part is that sometimes they do work, Shadow Raven. So yeah, I may end up cutting that bubble of plastic out from under there. Probably will. But I'm going to block this in at least. You can use the clippers to get that out. All right, so let's line around the sleeve. We're going to line between the belt and the robe. Going to line between the border on the robe and the robe. It's lining time. Then we'll do more layering. But the lining is going to help me see, like, give me more of a relative feel of how light or dark the blue is. And I can also use my lining color. Oop, little blorf. There. Can also use my lining color with a little bit of water added to it to kind of block in a shadow here where you can see that that blue would be darker. I'm going to mix it with a little bit of my Templar and block that in darker under that sleeve, under the book where it would be. Bring that in, the darker blue. And actually up here, it would be darker as well because it's still under the book. So if you're keeping like shadows in mind and how they would actually fall, you want to bring that, you want to have that correct. You don't want to highlight up that thing right there when it's right under that book. So sometimes we have to go back and adjust. If we've gone on autopilot and highlighted an area up where it wouldn't be, so see with that shadow there, that's much more realistic. Oh, that'd be nice, wouldn't it, Pendrick? It's not a boot. It's like really not shaped. Like, and it's got that shiny look where it like might be a bubble. I don't know. You could paint it as a boot. You could actually sculpt around it, use it as an armature, and make it a foot pretty easily. I may come in and clip it out and then see if something else can go there. Actually, let's just do that. Let's use our clippers. I'm going to use my side cutters. We're going to use the flat side against the top, the underside there. And we're going to insert in here. I'm going to try to just get around it and see if I can gouge it out. very soft. So what I can probably do is clip it right out, and then I'll have to use a little bit of a more finesseful way to dig the rest of it out. Just ropes down there? Yeah. So mine didn't fill. That's all right, though. Pretty much, I'm just trying to get this to the point, yep, where I can just yank it out. There it is. We have done surgery. And now it's actually come out almost perfectly. See, it's leaving just a little bit of a chunk there at the interior. I can grab my knife and get that out. Might actually try to use a little bit of a sculpting tool first, because it is pretty soft. And it didn't seem like it was joined up like perfectly. Yeah. Wasn't really joined to the robe. All right, that's good. Managed to take a little bit of the little strip at the top off. So it's not really even like attached very well to the robe. Like it just kind of pulled right out. So yeah, just a bubble. Now I just want enough of it out that I can paint over that area. So I'm just using my knife, and I'm not really even cutting it, I'm more scraping it. And then we've got almost all of it out. A couple little threads around here that I need to take off. Then I kind of take my knife and just make sure that if there are any little bits and threads that I want to take out, I can. There, and now that pretty much looks down there like it's just earth, and I can just paint the top there. So that was actually very easy to fix. Oh, I think I see a thread of plastic I might want to take out though. Yeah. If there's anything that looks like it's going to be loose grit, you definitely want to spend the time now to take it out before you paint it. There. Alrighty. Now we're doing lining. And liner is a more fluid paint, and what that means is that you can do a really fine line with it, even when it's not thinned very much. That's kind of why we went with that more fluid base out of the gate. And fluid doesn't mean that it is like, it has more water in it necessarily. It just means that the resins that you're using don't have a lot of body. They're there, but it's not a heavy body. It's a very light-bodied base. Very chemically different than anything else we use at Reaper. But I have this mixed just 5-to-1, so 5 drops of liner and 1 drop of water. And it's coming off the brush in nice thin lines, very, very smoothly, which is what it's supposed to do. This is why liners are great. Other paints, to get as smooth and as thin a line, you might have to thin quite a bit more. So liner is just really making it a little bit easier for you. This is kind of the whole thing behind Master Series, is you shouldn't have to spend, 5 minutes trying to mix up a color to the right consistency or 10. You shouldn't have to add a ton and a ton of water and then adjust. You should have a relatively short hop to get the paint to the consistency you need it. It's very much a Master Series philosophy. No, Blorf. Hey, Rancone. John would know if the retail space is still closed. I thought they were moving it to the new building out a new store, but I don't remember if that's actually going to be the case. John would know the latest thing. Pendrake knows. It is still closed. Closed until the new store is open. That's what I thought. So is the new store in the new complex, the new building, like up closer to the street, isn't it, John? Yeah, we're going to essentially shade all of that right now. Yeah, you can totally get a curbside pickup if we've got a game that you want to buy or a book. But yeah, Reaper is not the only company I know of that has taken advantage of the pandemic to do some remodeling, rebuilding, and just in general, like stuff that you normally would have had to close down the space anyway for. So instead, since you had to close the space for a while, you may as well just keep it closed until you finish your new build out. Actually, our favorite restaurant in Carmel, although it's actually technically in Monterey, did that over the pandemic. We go to a breakfast place we love down there, and they had long been crammed into this little space, and they obviously could be making more money if they'd had a bigger space, so they took advantage of the pandemic to pull the trigger on a brand new building that has a ton of space and a much bigger patio, and now they are much happier and they can seat a lot more people. So I like to see that. Like, those are the people who are making lemonade instead of sucking on lemons. They're like, okay, well, if we have to do this anyway, let's take advantage of this time to do the thing that we've been meaning to. So it's nice. It's nice to see some businesses coming out of this with better positioning, better facilities, or just having done the remodel that they'd been waiting on for so long. There we go. I kind of use my fingernail too. If I see a little bit of plastic still from the cleaning process, on Bones USA, it's often very easy to use your fingernail to just clear that out. End of December. Yeah, good. Yeah, the existing building that was there has been cleared out. All the plumbing walls and everything have gone in. Awesome. That's super exciting, John. That's super exciting. I can't wait to see the new digs. It's really the Reaper Village now. It's going to be like, so it's the Reaper compound. It's be super fantastic. Exciting stuff. All right, let's get the lining done on this side and under the belts as well. You can see how that crisps that line. That tiny little line just makes a big difference. It crisps everything up. It helps to make the details stand out. And it provides contrast. Pizza Dungeon will be complete after the game store is open. Food stuff takes longer. Yeah, for sure. And then the new events center. Ooh, this is exciting, guys. Yeah, that's true, Pendrake. That's true. There are an equal number of that. That's why it makes me happy to see the others that made it, that were able to pivot with the pandemic and actually like do something that they had wanted to do for a while. The ones that came out better positioned. It just proves, I think, that if you're a business owner, you've got to build that buffer so that you have like I think you will see more businesses doing that. I mean, even on a small margin, there's always a little that you can do to keep enough of a margin that maybe you won't have to completely panic. I was pleasantly surprised at how many restaurants and galleries stayed open in Carmel. Like, we're still there, right? Had done okay. Because, you know, tourism area shutdown is going to hit it pretty hard. But there were a couple galleries that had perished, but all of the restaurants that we really liked were still there. Yeah, I did wonder, like, how many restaurants and businesses are going to come out of this, like, essentially resolving to save a bigger buffer, bigger nest egg, just in case. And some people took advantage of the whole thing, of course, if they were kind of sick of what they'd done, to redo the entire, like, one of the restaurants we really like is apparently totally redone itself. Took advantage of the pandemic to totally reimagine what it was. So we haven't gone, so we're not sure, but yeah, exactly. Right, exactly. It's hard to get to some of that stuff when you're open, or do a remodel, right, Zen? Stuff like that. And maybe you've needed that remodel for a long time and that deep clean, and you just didn't. Like, it's so hard to do it. Wow, 26 months, Twisted Oma. Yeah, they redid a new menu, and they're trying to, like, just kind of do. They were themselves for a long time, like years and years and years. They've kind of been a staple in San Francisco. The problem is I really liked the old them, so I don't know about the new them yet. It seems like they want to do more like a chef's choice menu where it's just like set. You have some control if you have dietary problems, of course, but yeah, so we're not sure. The chef in question has 2 restaurants, though, and we haven't been to the other one. So, and the other one I think is still more like it used to be, so we'll see. All right, so I'm just blocking in that shadow there. I know that's going to be dark. It's like kind of a fold recessed. It would probably be a deeper fold if we could have done it and still made it mold correctly. So I'm going to suggest that it is deeper by painting it darker. Yeah, they went from a very, very nice kind of very, very much kind of an iconic date restaurant to having more of like I said, a set menu, a set. You go, you pay this much money, you get the chef's menu of this month, or whatever. So you don't get the choices. We tend to like to have the choices, though. We'll sometimes go for a restaurant if it's got a set menu, if it's like one of our restaurants does that for the holidays. Like, they have a special holiday set menu, like right near Christmas. Christmas is between Christmas and New Year's, I think, where they do a special thing. And that's cool, but most of the time we prefer choices. Oh, that's really cool. Really cool. Yeah, you want to definitely help that place. Like, that restaurant, has its heart in the right place, right, Kerniko? It was really good, Twisted Oma. We bought art. I showed people earlier. We got 2 paintings for our wall. They're San Francisco street scenes. They're both by the same artist. And let's see. So they're those. They're really pretty. And they're reframing the one on the right so it matches the one on the left. They're actually the same size. They're both San Francisco, different areas in San Francisco. One is morning and one is evening. So there's the daytime one, which I really love. It's morning. And then the one at night with the fog rolling in and the wet streets and everything. It's really cool. So we like that artist a lot, and we were happy to be able to find that gallery again and get those paintings. So yeah, so we have 2 paintings finally for our big wall that we both really enjoy too. So that was fun. It was fun to go. We just like looking at art and talking about art. Yeah, that's too bad, Shadow Raven. That definitely happens. So we're going to do that lining right around here. We'll go back to our layering and add in some lighter colors. I'm going to put a dark shadow on the back of the beard here. Doesn't matter what color your shadows are, especially when you're just like going to paint over it at some point. Which the beard isn't even base coated yet, so. Got a little tiny bit of plastic on the inside of this cape. Mini vacation with the minis. Yeah, David's been sucked into video games lately, but Adepticon is coming, so I'm pretty sure that he's going to reorient onto his competition entries for Adepticon soon. And I'll need to decide what I'm going to do as well. Probably need to get something done, since it'll be the first like non-ReaperCon competition for us. I just don't know if I have it in me to do Golden Demons this year, so maybe I need to do something from Creature Caster if they have their competition. Now I'm just blocking in some shadow in there. I can grab some water while that's wet and just blend that right in. Essentially making this kind of a wash. Can leave the darker shadow closer and make it come out to a lighter shadow on the outside pretty easily. Yeah, I don't have that experience, Turgeon. In my experience, when I tell them I have a reaction to tomatoes, they actually can factor that in. Like, they can use an alternative thing or make a change. I haven't ever had it just flat out be a bad fit for me. But then I have, like, other than avoiding gluten for the most part and no tomatoes. Tomatoes are the non-negotiable. But I think, in my experience, most restaurants have been able to adapt for that. If I had a lot of different issues, that might be harder. But yeah, we tend to like to be able to choose for that reason. We tend to like to have a menu where we have options so we can just conscientiously avoid the stuff with the tomatoey element. Just going to block in some rough shadows there on the sleeve. And I'm going to use a damp brush to kind of blend them. So blending with water, wet blending with water and paint, essentially, to just get that. If you use too much water, things are gonna start to pool like a wash or a glaze. So you gotta be very careful when you're doing that. Just use a damp brush if you want to do that kind of wet blend with water kind of thing. And while it's still wet, you can bring in more paint if you feel like you lost some of your darks. Do a quick layer. Then once again, grab your brush, make it damp, kind of blend it while it's still wet. Like so. Oh dear, gourmet burgers, blech. I mean, some places are cool that way, but we can make really good burgers at home. There is one place that David really likes that's downtown in Mountain View here that does do gourmet burgers. They have a bison burger and they have oh, what was the one that I had that was really tasty with like a jalapeno jelly? Like there was some cool takes on burgers, but we don't go very often to that place. Like, because when it comes down to it, the burgers that we grill at home are, you know, just as good. And if I really wanted fancy ingredients, I probably could get them. It's just when it's a fancy ingredient, you know, you're not going to use up and it's just going to go bad. Like then it maybe makes sense to just get it at a restaurant. Yeah, that makes sense, Surgeon. So I'm just bringing in a line here, a bit of a shadow. Again, just kind of like bringing in shadows under the book because you would have shadow right under that. You could cast a shadow for sure. A little bit darker. And we still got our Templar blue open, so I can wet blend if I want to. While that is still wet. Bring in that color. Kind of blend these guys together. So that sleeve is darker because the book is there. And I'll bring up a little bit of highlights here because light would be falling like right here. But this is probably going to stay in shadow because it kind of should be. And then I've got to bring in a little bit more shadow in here to kind of show that as well. Yeah, it's like steak places. Like there's very few like times that I would get excited about going to a steakhouse because at this point I can make restaurant quality steak myself in the cast iron. And my steaks are good enough that I am inevitably disappointed when we get steak somewhere else, almost always. So I've stopped ordering steak unless it's at a restaurant that we know and love and know that it can do really good steak. But I mostly avoid steakhouses unless they can do something else cool. Like if they've got lamb and pork on the menu as well, then I can be talked into it because those things I'm not an ace at. So I appreciate a well done, especially a well done pork chop. A really really flavorful, tender, well done pork chop can be a wonderful thing. And I'm not that great at pork yet, so decent, not great. Now I'm going to shade in under here again. Once again, I'm kind of wet blending with some water. Yeah. Yeah, one of David's guilty pleasures is like Americana places, kind of upscale Americana places that'll do like specialty burgers and stuff. So even though he knows it's like glorified pub food, he still likes to go to them every once in a while. So we do that, Red Links. We go to Eureka every once in a while. He'll talk me into it. They have pretty good sweet potato fries, so I'm okay with that. These days, though, I've actually, because of so many years of keto and low carb, I actually have gotten to the point where I prefer hamburgers with no bun. Like, I just don't want the bun. Not at all. Like, I don't know why people even eat that 250 calories they don't have to eat when the burger is so good without it. Biased. Biased. Totally biased. There we go. So the darker we make this shadow, because it's right next to these areas, the lighter these areas are going to look. And we can mitigate this by bringing up our highlights down below so that the shadow here is more evident. So we're going to do that, actually. We're going to bring up our highlight toward the bottom of this. I blended in a shadow there. But down at the bottom of the robe, the edges kind of curve out a little. You can see that little curve out, and that's going to catch the light. Especially because the farther away you get from an object casting a shadow, the less impact that shadow is going to have. Yeah, I love truffle fries, man. I'm not into potatoes or French fries in general. Like, they are not my thing. But I love truffle fries, especially when they're thin and crispy. Ironically, David, who loves potatoes far more than I do, who begs me to make potato fries now that we've got the air fryer, because like the home fries and the roasted potatoes that you can put out in the air fryer are really good. That man does not like truffle fries, which is probably good for me, because if we ordered truffle fries regularly, losing weight would be a hard call. Yeah, that's a good, when it's steakhouses, yeah. Good food, good atmosphere. I can see that. It just has to be darn good steak. Or they have to do something else on the menu that I can't do at home. Because, I mean, maybe I sound a little bit like, up in myself here, but dang, I can do a darn fine ribeye and New York strip at this point, guys. All right, so let's get to our Cotta Blue, which is our color that we have not done. Yeah, I've been doing sweet potato fries too in the air fryer, but it's for potatoes though. For potato fries or home fries like potato wedges, it excels. The air fryer does. It does make better sweet potato fries than I ever managed in the oven. Absolutely. Although now that David knows what how well it is. Oh, hi Henry. Henry, this one is not primed, and that's because it's a Bones USA. Here, let me grab it. So this is Reaper's top level plastic. It's very similar to resin in its finish. It holds a really excellent detail. But it's like the rest of the Bones. I don't actually wash any of the Bones models that I paint. I don't prime any of the Bones models I paint. I actually just wash them in a little bit of hot water and dish soap. I rinse them really thoroughly. I let them dry on a towel overnight, and then I just paint right over it. I don't really have a problem with the paint sticking at all. So I never prime my Bones. Now there are a lot of people online that are going to tell you that you've got to prime or that they would always prime their plastics from Reaper. But I find that if you wash them, that's not the case. So you can kind of try to do it either way. If it's a metal model or a resin, yes, I will prime. Absolutely. So I do have a couple of metal models, like this guy, this ogre, he's metal. And so I primed him white before I started. And the reason that I did white is that I knew I wanted this old first edition mustard colored skin. And so to make it brighter, I needed to make sure that I started with a white undercoat. With yellow, you always want to start, any kind of yellow, you always want to start white under it, in my opinion. So I primed that, and we've also got a resin bust from ReaperCon that we're working on. We're doing some of the green stuff to getting some of these mold lines taken off. This will also be primed, absolutely, before we paint it. And sometimes, like there is a Bones model, some primers can react with Bones, so you have to be careful. So what I did with this one is I actually painted it with walnut, and then I sprayed it with white to bring out the zenith highlighting. So that's another thing you can do with Bones. But again, I painted the entire thing in normal paint, and then I used a spray primer. Because some spray primers are going to react badly chemically with Bones, which is another reason I just don't prime. But you can do brush-on primers, or several like Badger's Stynylrez Res primer for the airbrush will work also, I think, on Bones. There's resources online. If you go to the Reaper Miniatures forum or our Discord, you can ask questions about what primers are good to use on Bones that don't react with it. And we have where's our Discord? Can we get a Discord link for Henry? So that, because the Discord is a great place to ask all these questions. There we go. Quindy with the Discord. Thank you, Quindy. And the priming Bones. Yeah, there's also a forum thread that you can click through right there that she just posted up, Henry. And because I think Aranda is the one who talks about priming Bones and what works, what doesn't. So there we go. It's a chemical interaction. When the primer stays tacky, it's essentially the solvent in the primer, usually. No time for bull. If the primer is shiny and comes off easily, I wonder, did you airbrush it? And is it a possibility that the primer had settled a little bit in the cup and maybe had gotten a little thickened or something like that for the 4th mini? Because that's the only way I can think of. If you're using the same mix for all of the minis, bull, that would be my guess. Because if you're spraying and maybe one got a little thicker, or maybe one had settled out a little bit in the mix or something like that. That's the only thing I could think of. Otherwise, the only other thing that can affect primer typically is if you're in a different environment, like atmospheric effects, like humidity or temperature can affect primer. Yeah, Stynylrez is water-based. So it can't be the You know what I mean. Dang it, I just lost it. It was the thing I first mentioned. But essentially the aerosol mix will react. But if it's airbrushed and it's and a Sinal Res, that's not the answer. Solvent, that was it. Solvent in the primer if it's a spray primer. But that would not be the case with Sinal Res. And it's unlikely that it would have had a different atmospheric effect because you probably airbrushed them in the same place at the same time. So probably my guess would be maybe it was a little bit thicker coat, or maybe if you were airbrushing using the same gravity feed, maybe there was a slightly different mix if it had settled out a little bit, and that may have affected the mixture. That would be my guess. That those things would make sense to me as reasons. All right. Now this color has a much higher load of white, Akata Blue. So we're going to add a little bit more. You can see the difference in it and the previous color. So you know there's a lot of white. That means there's going to have to be more water. Otherwise it will not layer very nicely. So I'm actually going to put in 2 drops. This is going to be more like a 1-to-1 mix. With anything that's got significant levels of white, I would start at 1-to-1. And I probably, if it's got a lot of white in it, I would even go to 1-to-2 paint to water. But that would be a very pale. You can call it whatever you want. You could just call it that Badger primer. So let's make sure we've got a nice solid coat of Ashen and then try bringing in our Akata Blue. So we're mostly doing this down on the bottoms here to bring out, to kind of emphasize the shadow under the arm by bringing up our highlight at the bottom. So I'm going to make sure this is a nice solid highlight down here. So I kind of did one run on it, but I didn't really go and smooth it out, make it nice. So I'm going to do another layer. To do that, I'm going to do another layer of Ashen before I bring the Akata in. All right. Let's bring that in. Okay, Akata Blue. Let's take a look and see if you are too bright. So we're going to see right away if we see brush strokes. We're going to know our paint is too much. That shows a very... Look at how that brush stroke is. You can just see it. It's just like, no way is this sucker going to blend. It's like a pale liner. Yeah, so you can see the stripes. And that, folks, is why you have to thin your really pale colors a lot. Yes, I would absolutely prime a 3D resin printer mini. It's resin. Noli was, this is the Knoll that was 3D resin printed. And she was primed Zenith. So I primed her black and then I oversprayed white. You can still see it on the parts where I haven't base coated yet. But yeah, it was primed. I don't think I would ever not prime a 3D print. Just because. The primer just gives you a little extra tooth. Remember, the purpose of primer is to give your paint a little extra tooth to cling to. So part of it is to keep the paint from chipping, and you may find that you don't have a problem with that on 3D printed resin. But putting down a primer does give you a little bit of tooth. It is going to make the paint adhere a little bit better. It's going to give a little more strength. So that's why I would do it. Yeah, Quindy has it in 1. Just treat them like normal resin, or Coronico rather. That's my philosophy as well. I don't see any downside of priming, essentially. With bones, it's more that I absolutely don't need to. I've never needed to, so I don't. And the downside on bones priming is sometimes you get a reactive primer. But yeah, with everything else, you don't get that disadvantage. It doesn't chemically react to resin or metal. That's what they're made to be used on. So, or styrene for that matter. Styrene plastic. So in that case, Yes. Hello, Chainer. Long time no see. Hope you've been good. I think I can prime my own minis. It's kind of that process. Actually, I really enjoy doing the Zenith Prime and then doing sketch and having all the going over all the areas to accentuate them. So now we're going to go more to like a 1 to 1.5. This is a really huge paint puddle now. This Akata Blue is really, really full. And it's really, really watery. You will be alarmed, chances are, when you see how watery the paint gets. And you're like, I have to paint with this? And this is where you want to make sure not to have too big of a brush for you. Because if you have too big of a brush, you're going to be sucking up a lot of paint when you dip it into here. And it's going to be forever to like kind of unload that brush. So if you are inexperienced with layering, take a tiny brush and use your tiny brush. Because there's so much water in this, it's not going to dry in the tiny brush right away. It's going to be good. And you can unload your tiny brush a lot faster with just a few dabs. This is a good layering consistency. When I put my first brush strokes down, they just lightened the surface. I didn't see the brush strokes. So that means that Akata Blue has quite a bit of white in it and requires a 1 to 1.5, roughly, thinning. And I'm going to kind of put it over that bottom edge so that I blend in the brush stroke that I got the first time. That's how I know my layering is working. If I can use it, if my consistency is good enough to blend in a previous brush stroke, then I know that my layering is the paint is the right consistency. There we go. Quindy does know all the links. So good. This is the point where I should mention, I put up a post yesterday about all my recent, lots of good news and stuff. I have a Patreon, patreon.com/paintingbig. And I just am making some changes to it. So before, for example, I used to put models up for sale. Every once in a while, people on here ask me if I ever sell my minis. I do, and it's I make it available just for my patrons. I do have a really low patron tier, so it's like $2 a month. So it's not too expensive if you want to try to get a shot at an Ann Mini. But up to recently, only $10 and up people could bid, and we decided to change that. I talked to my patrons, and they were really awesome about it. So everybody who's a patron can now bid when I put up models for sale. And the other cool thing, well, most of you know I got engaged, so that's another cool thing. But also, Patreon contacted me about being a Patreon ambassador, which apparently gets me some, more resources and workshops on how to grow my Patreon and coaching even, and opportunities to mentor other creators. And it's really cool. It's a really cool program. And I got accepted. They told me I could apply. It's invitation only. And I applied and I got accepted this weekend. So I'm pretty excited about that, to see what that's all about. So yeah, patreon.com/paintingbig. We do a lot of awesome tutorials. I'm also starting a new little tiny video series because now I finally feel like I can. I tried to before and I just didn't have the time. Like I hadn't micromanaged my schedule enough. But now I feel like I can. So we're going to have a whole new thing that all patrons get too. It's going to be kind of a short video fundamentals series. 1 a month. So all sorts of big news. All sorts of big news. I just made a post about it. So if you are a patron, you can read that post or come on over and give my Patreon a try, and I will thank you, because it is my main source of income. It keeps me going. It matters a lot to me. And it honestly is my favorite thing I do. I kind of laughed when Patreon contacted me about being a Patreon ambassador, because one of the questions they ask you is, how would you talk about Patreon on your, on your media? And it's like, I already promote Patreon all over the place, because it's been a total game changer for me. It enables me to do this. There we go. So we've got a nice, kind of see that highlight there? Just nice right there. So yeah. Yeah, I decided to put it in at the end so I could talk a little bit about all the, because there's so much new stuff, right? There's that whole new video series, and then there's everybody can bid on auctions, and so that tier is changing, and yeah, it's cool. Every once in a while, I like to switch it up, and I like to switch it up usually around the new year. We're almost at 3 years on my Patreon. Next month, in fact, is my 3-year anniversary. Yeah, I was just thinking about that. Pentads it's gonna be harder with pentads once we get past the primaries, because even now I'm like, whoa, green, there's so much green out there. There's so many different greens, right? So I'll just have to pick a couple of things. But now can you see how smooth this is coming up, guys? This is really looking nice now with the shadow there and everything coming up. It is a lighter blue, so if we decide to go this way with all of him, his main blue will be a lighter blue, but that'll be kind of cool. So we'll try it. We'll see. We made his skin really, really pale, so now I'm almost thinking I might want to take his beard darker. I don't know, I'm thinking about it. But yeah, I'm planning to still do a few more. Like the red, orange, and yellow, I feel those pentads definitely needed to be done. But I should probably do a couple of different, like, the problem is there where you just get into, there's so many different greens. There's olive greens, and there's muted greens, and bright greens, and warm greens, and cool greens. And then you're in, well, for green pentads, what am I supposed to do? But I'll think about it. But yeah, you'll get some more pentad stuff. All right, let's get the other side of this and bring it up. Again, I'm using tiny brush so that I don't have a lot of paint on my brush. Yeah, but it never hurts to have some of this stuff down in PDF format. What I've been hearing, actually, you'll see probably a few more PDFs out of me in the coming months, in the coming year, because a lot of people find it hard to find the time to do a video, but they really like having a PDF because they have it. They can always go back to it easily and find the information they need. So that's kind of the stuff I've been hearing from some of my patrons. I listen a lot. I always listen to you guys because it's all for you. So whatever works for you. So I've been doing a lot of videos over the last year, and I decided that I would do a little bit of a switch and do more PDFs for this coming year. Still do videos here and there. Whenever a topic, some topics really are good to cover on video, and some topics are much better on PDF. This is a gray blue, though. It's not a... See, and that's the thing with blues, too. You get this, you get the gray blues, you get the warm blues, you get the cold blues, you get the brown blues, you get... Yeah, it's all weird. So what I probably will do is swap out and do pentads. Maybe just pick a particular color to form a pentad around, like a popular green to do a pentad around. Like, if you were going to do a pentad and you were starting with, like ancient oak, what would you do? Stuff like that. So probably less generalistic colors and probably more like colors that are interesting and like people seem to like, and how you can create a pentad for that here and there. Especially if it's like a more uncommon color. Like ancient oak is a color that a lot of people love, but they haven't. Like icy violet is one we could do because people love icy violet, but they don't know how to use it. And there are a couple different ways you can tackle that in a pentad. So maybe we just start doing more popular colors, but we do maybe a couple different pentads you could do with a popular color. That could be fun. But yeah, we're fast getting to the point of infinite variation. The thing about reds and oranges and yellows is we have relatively few variations on those colors, iterations on those colors in the paint lines. Like, we have a lot of different reds, but in general, you can kind of break them down to various types of reds like I did and play with them that way. And we have a fairly small arrangement of yellows just because, right? But then when you get into the greens, suddenly it explodes. Greens and blues and purples. Yeah. So, But yeah, I like being able to do the PDFs for sure. All right, so we're bringing that up. So now you can kind of get a sense of where we started on top. It's much more moody, right? Much more moody blues. And then here we're coming up like, this is a very pretty color actually. I really like it. So I think we'll go with this, and I'm gonna think, maybe we'll think a little bit about colors. It's almost time to figure out what we're gonna do for contrast. Because we've got some dark shadows, we've got some light colors, light skin, light pink, light rat so far, although I haven't decided on the rat color yet. We haven't decided on a hair color, and that's something we probably do need to think about. I mean, we could go brown, we could go kind of a rusty orange, we could go white, but then we're putting white against the pale skin. So if we did white, I'd probably go with a gray that goes out to white. We could go black with it. We could go, however you like. I mean, he's kind of got old man eyebrows, but we don't have to paint him old. I think a lot of painters are OCD, Turgeon. A lot of artistic types and creative types are. All right, we are at this end of the stream. Sweet. Okay, guys. So what we did today, we did layering. We actually glazed on one side and we reverse layered on the other side. And we talked about, shading. We did a little bit of wet blending with just paint and water, which I don't do very often, but it works very well with these blues, which really are blendable. We're talking now about, I talked a bit about lining and about why liners are different. We talked about primers on bones and why not, or why you would prime things. And then, yeah, we are headed toward more highlighting and also blocking and figuring out other colors for this model next time we encounter Mr. Darius. So thank you so much for tuning in. And yeah, I hope that you have a lovely rest of your day. We have, do we have Rhonda? Yeah, I was going to say Rhonda is on today. The next model tomorrow, we're going back to Bronze Golem, playing more with Bronze Golem. So we'll see what we can do tomorrow on him. And yeah, thank you all for coming out and showing up as always. I love your company. It was fun to talk to you today. And I hope that you have a great rest of your Monday. All right, everybody? Have a good one.